All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. I am Dave, and this is Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for helping me out over on Patreon. And for those of you who got my email, thank you for helping me out over on PayPal. Since that happened, though, my account has been suspended. So, it's just some weird stuff going on with this channel and stuff surrounding me doing anti-war, especially when I talk anti-war. I get demonetized. I've been very aggressive, though, posting these video clips or screenshots over on Twitter when I get demonetized, and it tends to help speed up the remonetization process, which if it happens on a Friday, you've got an entire weekend probably without any currency flowing in. So I want to emphasize this video, Tulsi Gabbard just, again, hitting it out of the park, talking about war, putting action to her words. Many of her colleagues in Congress have failed on this issue. They haven't even talked about this issue. And by the way, I was told in that hit piece article from a couple days ago, it was a video I did called The Worst Hit Piece Ever on Tulsi Gabbard. I was told in that video that Tulsi's constituents, these people here who show up to Tulsi events, they kind of just politely nod, much like a zombie when she's talking about foreign policy and that nobody cares about foreign policy. Well, I would watch this video because there's a bit of a different reaction from the one over at that online fish wrapper thing that I was reading the other day. Let's roll the video because this is vintage Tulsi Gabbard.
The first time in history, the military of another country as a terrorist organization. How dangerous that is. What a dangerous precedent that sets. Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, literally said, when asked, so you're saying that the head of Iran's military should be treated the same as ISIS? He said yes. That is a direct abuse of constitutional power.
Now, she just used a phrase that if you're a constitutional conservative, if you're a libertarian, and even if you're a so-called conservative, but see, so-called conservatives, the garden variety ones, the neo-conservatives, those people don't ever see a war that they don't want us to get involved in. You know, like the Bill Kristol philosophy. But it's also like Mark Levin, Rush Limbaugh. It's all of Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck. It's all of the daytime talk heroes. They're all on board with going over to Iran and also being propaganda arms for Trump as he tries, again, to leverage the American people, much like George W. Bush did, and to a lesser degree Obama. Of course, Obama had to convince folks on a few interventions that he, the red line and all that stuff. It's just every single president does this. And Tulsi is actually introducing legislation that would prevent it from happening again. I mean, if you don't love this woman, you're not paying attention.
A constitutional power that lies within Congress to make the decision to declare war or not. So I've introduced legislation to deal with some of these kinds of abuses called the No More Presidential Wars Act. And this legislation...
Did you? All right. So, did you see the zombies react there? The zombies were hooting and hollering, all right, and smiling and cheering. It's just a mind-blowing disconnect between the propaganda being leveraged against this best of all candidates, between the gaslighting on the poll numbers, the whole Assad thing, which never ends, it never goes away, because Tulsi never tells them what they want to hear. And even if she did, they'd still ask her. They still ask her about her father's views on gay rights. And it's like, really? Can we let it go? Have you seen my voting record on those issues? I mean, I guess there are progressives that sense there's a dog whistle that Tulsi is sending to all of these so-called right-wingers and evil people that support her. But what that is just a smokescreen so people don't have to address this right here. Because this would get tons of support across the board. Independents, libertarians, libertarian-minded conservatives, old school anti-war Democrats, if they exist anymore, Green Party people who are definitely out there who would love to vote for a major party candidate, and I think they'd also love for a major party candidate to come over to their side too. But in any event here, let's listen to this some more.
Legislation would make it an impeachable offense for any president to bypass Congress and to unilaterally go and start waging a war in another country.
Okay, so for all of the hoaxers, for all of the people that are still going off, and this I would be, if you say to me, Donald Trump should be impeached, and I'll say, on what grounds? And you'll say, well, he colluded with the Russians. And I'll say, wrong, but he should be impeached. And you'll say, okay, on what grounds? And I'll say, well, he's going into another war without congressional oversight, without their approval. And you might get a few, okay, sure, because everybody wants to get Trump, but I bet you'd get a few people saying, no, we can't do that because, the U.S. has to exert its influence over there, and even though I don't like Trump, it's something that we need to do. And that's why Tulsi Gabbard is the best candidate, and that's why people who want to impeach Trump are doing it for the wrong reasons. And yes, there would be grounds for impeachment if you're actually following the Constitution. By the way, the same could be said for Obama and George W. Bush, and maybe in one instance, maybe Bill Clinton. I'm not sure about Clinton, but certainly George H.W. Bush. In any event, let's listen to the applause. There were the zombies applauding.
And I'll close with this because I want there to be no doubt. Someone said, okay, that's great. You introduced that legislation as a member of Congress. What are you going to do when you're president? Sign it. Thank you.
Whoever shouted out, sign it. Free Tulsi t-shirt for that person, whoever said sign it. Tulsi Gabbard is a different kind of presidential candidate. She just is. And for her to get out there and boldly say, I will hold myself accountable, I would sign the bill. Tulsi, imagine if Tulsi was restrained by a bill that she wrote. I don't think she would have an issue with that. And what's really sad, though, is 95% of our media would have a huge issue. They'd be complaining that the president can't act on the will of the American people to go. The will of the American people? Really? Have you taken any polls on if we should go into Iran? Can someone take a poll if we should go into Iran or not? I'd love to see the results of that poll. So, again, don't want to make this video too long, but Tulsi putting her legislative, chutzpah where her mouth is, and getting busy doing what members of Congress are supposed to do. The No More Presidential Wars Act. Oh, imagine finally getting the power back to the people, because these are representatives who are closer to the people than the president. And it makes sense that we communicate our desires to our local congressperson, and then they transmit that to the larger scheme of things. And hopefully our voices are heard, and we say no more wars, no more unconstitutional wars. And this bill, if signed into law, would make that so much easier and put pressure and leverage on, the members of Congress, but more importantly on the president, who would be operating, again, more like a dictator rather than, a leader of a democratically driven republic and so forth. So that's my video on this. Tulsi hitting it out of the park every single time, without fail. She is the best candidate running in my lifetime, and I will keep saying that until people start to listen. All right, I'm done. Be back soon. See you then.